Well guys, welcome back at Watering PSUs with a brand new cooler from a brand new brand. Well, it's actually not that much brand new, but right now they started distributing it more in Europe and in Italy through ABACO. So here I am reviewing the Valkyrie Jarn 360. So it's their entry level, and I'll take entry level with a grain of salt, of course, 360mm all-in-one water cooler with full RGB. Now this thing in Italy right now can be bought for $120, which is not bad at all, seeing the performance. Now off the get-go, packaging and unboxing. Okay, so the whole unboxing experience is good and the branding, they have it on point. So the box, you don't see as much what's inside, but I think it looks clean. But upon opening it up, you can see that everything is branded. So all the way from the all-in-one itself to the tiny little packages in where there are the screws and all the mounting kits have the Valkyrie logo. The thermal paste has the Valkyrie logo, and even under the cold plate of the all-in-one water cooler, we have an anime girl. So in my opinion, already we are starting off nicely. I like the cooler already. They do give you a massive manual though. Like I have university study textbooks which are smaller than this manual. However, it's not bad because they give it to you in every language possible. It even has Italian, which is strange because I never usually get documentation in my own language, so I like that. But it is very, very specific. It goes through all the sockets. It tells you how to mount it on Intel, AMD, all the different types, and yeah, you cannot go wrong if you read the manual in this case. Now, speaking of the packaging, what they give you is full Intel and AMD compatibility. It supports all Intel sockets, LGA 1200, LGA 1700, even the older LGA 1151, and on AM5, of course, it is supported, as well as AM4, but these are pretty obvious. If you mount it on AM5, you will have to remove the plastic bits on the motherboard, and then you can mount it straight on there. Today, for the installation, I'm mounting it on a Strix LGA 1200 motherboard just because I wanted to see how hard you can push this cooler on an overclocked i5 as a personal test, because I gauge how well these coolers performs based on overclocking performance. Because let's be honest, if you buy a 360mm all-in-one water cooler and you run your CPU at stock, I will just cut you a lot of time. Every single 360mm all-in-one water cooler out there is going to be able to handle your CPU if you run it at stock. So if you want to run your PC at stock, just buy whatever cooler you like the most, because the performance is not going to vary that much. Something that is going to vary though is noise. And this cooler, little spoiler, performs very well in that regard. But let's focus on the packaging still. So in the packaging, they give you the actual all-in-one, which is separated from the fans, okay? Now, to mount the fans, they give you two types of screw. They give you standard screws in case you want to mount your radiator as exhaust on top of your case, but they also give you longer screws in case you want to mount your AIO on the front and use the grill of the case as pass-through for your all-in-one. Now, this is a little detail that most people probably wouldn't appreciate, but since I build a lot of PCs and I have had issues mounting stuff at the front, I appreciate a lot because having the right screws makes a ton of a difference in certain builds. So that's a big plus for me. Another plus is that they give you, included for this price, which is again relatively low for a 360mm ARGB cooler, they give you a whole RGB and fan hub, which is branded and even has the Valkyrie logo on it, which lights up in ARGB, and the logo itself synchronizes with all the fans and cooler, which is kind of cool if you ask me. But even though you have the hub, you don't need to use it because all the fans are daisy chainable. So if you wanted to, you could just plug every single fan into one another, pump included, and not use the hub. You would then need to get 3-to-1 extension for your actual fans though, or you could plug them into the motherboard, of course, if you have enough ports. But that's good to see. Basically, the hub is just a freebie, which will still remain with a lot of free ports. Even if you have like 15 fans in your PC, you can plug them all to the hub because the three of the cooler are daisy chainable, and so you have a lot of empty spaces. Now again, mounting process is pretty easy. Something cool though is you can rotate the actual logo on the RGB water block. Now this is much appreciated because again, depending on the socket and especially depending on your case, you're gonna need to rotate your water blocks. So nowadays, a lot of water blocks are symmetric because in this way you cannot mount them wrong. Or if you do have an LCD screen, you can just rotate the image. But for standstill water blocks, you often end up with them on the side. For example, some Deepcool products, you end up with the Deepcool writing bent, and it's not the best. But in here, you can just rotate it and make it look nice. The tubes are pretty long, so it's no big deal, and the radiator is not too thick, so it will fit in any case that supports a 360mm all-in-one water cooler, so compatibility is great. So I say we talk about performance and noise levels. Now performance, I gave you a bit of a spoiler, and again, I told you that basically if you're running a high-end water cooler, there's not really going to be a difference. However, some people still think that like brands like Corsair make better coolers, so I tested this straight up against an HF150i on an i9-3900K, and out of the box settings, this cooler was actually better by 1 degree, which is margin of error pretty much, but means that it is comparable to a Corsair cooler that costs a lot more. On average, in Italy, you pay around 50 to 60 bucks more for a Corsair cooler because it's Corsair, it's branded, everybody knows it. And honestly, I don't even like Corsair softwares that much, so I don't understand the price premium. Speaking of which, they do give a software out with this cooler, but generally you will only need it if you buy another Valkyrie model with an LCD screen, because if you are going to buy one of these, you can just control it via the BIOS and via your motherboard's LEDs software. But the software, I tried it, it's pretty good, but you don't need it, so we're not going to cover it that much. Now, we have on my side here the Dragon Fang 360, another Valkyrie cooler, which is going to come very soon on the channel. And now this is going to be a little bit higher performance and more aesthetic things, so stay tuned for that one as well. Let's focus on this one. So stock performance, again, is comparable to a Corsair. Overclocked performance, I have tried it on this motherboard right here where I mounted it, which is, by the way, coming very soon on the channel. So if you are seeing this video after like a week from its release, I also have the full build on the channel with this motherboard being used, where I test in games as well. But basically, I was running at 5.2 gigahertz overclock on this i5-10600K, basically maxing it out, and the cooler was handling it fine. So we reached CPU potential via voltage, because going higher than 1.45 would have been very damaging to the CPU, and the cooler was still handling the CPU fine, which is great. Like, honestly, this is where I gauge the quality of a cooler. Now, noise levels, of course, if you max it out at 100%, it's pretty noisy, but it's not like turbojet noisy like certain coolers out there. So it's pretty good in noise as well. And at stock, you can definitely hear it, even on a quiet fan curve, but it's a very like background noise. And the pump, you cannot hear at all, which is great, because I find, you know, it's normal to be able to hear just a little bit of fans spinning, but the pump, if it whines, it's super annoying. So we covered it all. Conclusions. Do I like this cooler? For the price, a lot. I do think you need to choose your cooler based on your aesthetic preferences and the build you're putting it in. So you will have to decide for yourself based on that. But again, if you like the aesthetics, you can buy a cheaper brand, which in my opinion is cheaper just because it's brand new and it's not very known. I think it's going to be a premium brand contender for most brands out there. And it is definitely pretty unique. So personally, in the right build, I would buy it. I think the price performance is definitely there, and it doesn't have any significant issue that would make me recommend against buying it. If you like the video, please drop a like and a sub. Check out my builds. I also show you guys how to do undervolting and overclocking on the channel, as well as other reviews. So hopefully I will see you guys again in another video. Bye bye.